explorers, it's your adventure podcast hostess with the mostest, Katie Staples. I'm going to share my travel stories, tips, and tricks for exploring and creating unforgettable experiences and memories. Find me on Instagram at the.great.escape.podcast so you can follow along and I can hear from you. Episode 4 is all about White Sands National Park and nearby Oliver Lee Memorial State Park. I visited those last summer when my dog Molly and I did a 60-day road trip in my RV Sheldon out west. I called it our Hot Girl Summer Tour. This was my first time in New Mexico. We started off in the southeast at Carlsbad Caverns, then dipped back into Texas for a few days for Guadalupe Mountains National Park and El Paso, then back into New Mexico, went through the Lincoln National Forest to White Sands National Park in south central New Mexico. The closest city is Alamogordo, and the park is basically surrounded by the White Sands Missile Range. Sometimes the road to the national park closes for the missile range missile testing. It's only like 30 minutes to 3 hours at a time, and no one can drive through either direction. So when you visit, double check their website so you can time your trip properly. They're not that frequent. Like I didn't experience a road closure when I went. And yet, if you're going to sit there and spend 2 or 3 hours just sitting on the road, you might as well go find something else fun to do. Now, I wasn't sure what to expect New Mexico to be like. Is it all desert? Is it red like Arizona? Y'all, this area around White Sands is beautiful. Pictures do not do it justice. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see a lot of pictures and videos I took, yet you don't even know. You just got to go, okay? White Sands is one of the only parks where, yeah, there's a few trails, yet you're really encouraged to just run around and do whatever, touch whatever. Your dog on a leash can go wherever. Dogs are usually super limited in the national parks out west, so this was awesome to be able to bring Molly pretty much anywhere I went. You can certainly experience all of White Sands in just a 1 to 2 day trip. It's vast, yet the dunes are kind of all the same. So you can stop at the visitor center just outside the gate. I like to get a walking stick mount and a sticker from each park I visit. Then you go through the fee gate. Now, of course, if you have a national park pass like the America the Beautiful pass, your entry is covered. It's currently $25 a vehicle without that pass, and then that is good for 7 consecutive days. Then you keep driving the one road into the park called Dunes Drive, where the landscape just completely changes. The paved road ends and it turns into this packed sand road. It was so surreal because you're driving along looking at normal southern New Mexico landscape, and then within like 100 yards, it changes into what felt like driving the pristine Gulf beaches, like just hills of fresh, bright white sand everywhere. Like all directions, just bright white sand, super clean, so clean and so white that it looked like snow. And behind the sand dunes are the San Andres Mountains. So it gives you even more of a feeling that you're surrounded by snow instead of sand. Except when you get out and you feel the heat, you are definitely reminded that this isn't snow. I got to the park about 9 o'clock in the morning and was parked and walking around by 9:30. And that was pretty comfortable, yet it definitely got hot by 11 a.m. So if you're doing a daytime trip, I recommend going as early as you can if you're going in the late spring to mid fall. It does get a little bit cooler in the winter. Remember, white reflects light, so all the sun shining down bounces off the sand and back to you. So bring sunscreen. It was pretty weird, like imagining when you were driving that this was snow, and then realizing when you got outside the vehicle that it's hot. And the weirdest thing is you're thinking, okay, I'm at the beach. Like I'm on this pure white beach of Destin, Florida, and I'm going to get out and I'm going to be able to hear the waves. And then you get out of the car and you hear nothing. Like, seriously, it's so quiet, especially if there aren't people near you. There are no sounds. And there's very little wildlife there, especially out during the day. So, as you'd hear birds in the forest or squirrels rustling around, or even just like flies in the desert, there's nothing here. White Sands was dedicated as a national monument in 1933, and it didn't become one of the 63 national parks until 2019. It is the second most recently named national park behind 2020's New River Gorge in West Virginia. White Sands National Park is 146,000 acres, so just barely smaller than Zion National Park from episode 2. Go check that out if you haven't already. It is the largest gypsum sand dune in the world, and the highest dunes there are about 60 feet high. Now, if that impresses you, hit up Great Sand Dunes in Colorado, where its tallest dune is 750 feet tall. I'll cover that national park in a later episode. So there's a couple different activities you can do in White Sands National Park. I'm sure you've seen pictures of people sledding, and there's also a couple hikes to do, and you can camp here in one spot. Sledding is super fun, and you see some people bring snowboards or trash can lids, snow sleds, like anything to ride down on. And you can buy proper sandboards and sand sleds at the gift shop near the visitor center, as well as wax to help make it super slick. The sleds are like $25 new, yet you'll get a credit back if you return them. Then they'll rent them for a little bit cheaper used for the next person. The park suggests the Roadrunner picnic area and the Alkali Flats trailhead as the best locations for sledding. The park has 5 trails to enjoy. The first one I did was the Interdune Boardwalk. It's only a 0.4-mile round trip on a raised boardwalk above the fragile Interdune area. It's ADA accessible and has a large shaded area about halfway down for you to rest. There's a bunch of signs teaching you about the wildlife and the geology, and Molly was able to do this one with me. Yet, of course, all she wanted to do was hop off of the boardwalk and run around in the sand. Then we did the backcountry camping trail, which is a 2-mile lollipop trail that takes you a decent ways out from the parking lot across the loose sand. It is incredibly easy to get turned around because everything looks the same. There's trail markers every couple hundred feet, yet they fall over sometimes from the wind eroding the sand. So you really need to pay attention to where you are going and where you have come from. We saw a bunch of lizards on this trail. There's no official campgrounds in the park. The only way to stay overnight is to get a permit for backcountry camping at one of the 10 sites along this trail. They are $3 a person and first come, first served. There's no shade. There's no water. You're just in the middle of the sand. It allows for amazing stargazing at night because you're so secluded. White Sands is one of the international dark sky parks, and on a clear night, you can see the Milky Way. And you might get lucky and see some nocturnal wildlife like foxes, snakes, and scorpions. September through November will be one of the best times to go as you don't have the summer daytime heat nor the winter below freezing low at night. I will definitely go back again to camp here. Another longer, tougher hike in the park is the Alkali Flats Trail at the end of Dunes Drive. We didn't do this one because it was already almost the heat of the day, and I really wasn't sure what to expect and if Molly would be okay doing the 5-mile round trip. It's also rated moderately difficult. Please don't let the name Alkali Flats fool you. This is not flat. You are walking over some dunes in loose sand, and you will get a leg workout for sure. A shorter hike is the Dune Life Nature Trail. There are placards to teach you all about the wildlife and vegetation in that area. And even though it's just a mile long, this trail could take you an hour to complete. It's flat at the beginning, and then you walk up 2 steep dunes. Last and not least, there is the easy half-mile playa trail. Its signs teach you about the ever-changing dunes and how that affects the habitat for wildlife. Now, there is a free ranger led sunset tour most of the year as well. It's about half a mile and 45 minutes and time to end at sunset so you can enjoy great views. And if you're feeling less adventurous or you just need a break during your trip, there are 3 picnic areas in the park. Each offer pit toilets, so AKA no running water to flush, no running water to wash your hands, so bring some if you need it. And they all have these cool tables with like a wind sand screen. It gets really windy there. In fact, during the spring windstorms, you can experience whiteout conditions from all the sand blowing. No matter what time of year you visit, you may choose to bring a face covering. The super fine gypsum sand blows very easily, and the dunes are constantly changing. And they plow Dunes Drive in the parking lots at least twice a week because so much sand blows and moves around. That sand will definitely get into your shoes, so choose your footwear carefully. I think I wore old tennis shoes and went barefoot a few times. Some people prefer Tevas and sandals, yet I just suggest something with a heel strap as opposed to just flip flops. Because when you're at the beach and you go flip flop, and all it's doing is like flinging sand up the back of your leg. Yeah, no. It's hot, so you're sweating, and the sand is so fine that it gets everywhere. Like it will stick to you everywhere, and I do mean everywhere. You may want to bring towels or rinse off with some extra water. I ordered these amazing body wipes from Amazon that are the best shower replacement when I'm boondocking and don't have access to a shower. Make sure you bring sunblock, sunglasses, or a face covering, and you may want to bring lotion because the sand will really dry your skin out. So that's White Sands National Park. The other place I'd love to tell you about is Oliver Lee Memorial State Park, just 30 minutes away. I stayed here for 2 nights before visiting White Sands. It is a great campground, really well maintained. It has a nice bathhouse. Now, some of their 43 sites have electricity and some do not. It has a great view of White Sands National Park, especially from the higher elevation sites in the campground. We were at site 2, 3, or 4, which was perfect for watching the sunset over the Tularosa Valley. You're right at the entrance to Dog Canyon in the Sacramento Mountains, not to be confused with Dog Canyon in the Guadalupe Mountains National Park in Texas. Dog Canyon Trail at Oliver Lee Memorial State Park is one of the best hikes there. It's just over 10 miles out and back with over 3,500-foot elevation gain. The trail is well marked, it's well maintained, yet it's definitely strenuous. The views along the way are beautiful, and Molly was allowed to go with me, so I was super excited. Then at the trailhead, there was a sign warning about mountain lions and rattlesnakes. It said, "You're in cougar country." And I had never really camped or hiked anywhere, especially alone, where those were legit threats. So it definitely had me a little uneasy and very aware of our surroundings, especially since Molly is the perfect size for cougar prey, and she's part whippet, which are hounds, and she will find a hole in the ground and just stick her face right in to see what's going on. Now, I didn't expect to do all 10 plus miles. I just figured we'd start early before it got hot and we'd go a couple miles up until we were tired, then turn back around. Well, we started by 7:45 in the morning and quickly lost the shade. It's definitely steep for the first half a mile, then a little flatter for the next half mile, then a fairly constant incline for the next 1.5. And that's about all I made it up, 2.5 miles. My cell service started to get spotty, and I had already spotted fresh black bear poop on the trail. Then I started getting this uneasy feeling like I was being watched. And I'm assuming we were the first ones on the trail that day. It was a random Monday morning. The campground was mostly empty, and there were no cars parked in the trailhead lot. So, going up the trail, we had amazing views of the campground and the valley below, and I couldn't see any other hikers. So, I'm feeling like I'm being watched, and my mind starts going, "Well, is it a mountain lion?" And I just got in my own head. So we turned around and, of course, saw like 4 people coming up behind us. So we wouldn't have been too alone. Yet I got out of the hike what I was looking for. And I totally encourage you to go do the 10 plus mile round trip and send me your pictures so I know what I missed. Another trail there is the Riparian Nature Center Trail near the Visitor Center. It's a half-mile loop that is relatively flat. Some other cool trails there include Oliver Lee Ranch House and Frenchie's Cabin. So that's Oliver Lee Memorial State Park. We stayed there for 2 nights and then did White Sands all morning on our way out. Now, if you keep going east on Route 70 out of the park, you run into the town of Alamogordo. I didn't explore there too much, yet I definitely visited the site of the #1 cheeseburger in Otero County, which is a little drive-in called Heidi Ho. It gave me old school Sonic vibes. And also in Alamogordo, there's a zoo and a few museums. Now, if you keep going east on Route 82, you go up to Cloudcroft, a super high mountain town. It's at 8,600 feet, so literally twice the elevation of nearby Alamogordo. The population is like 760 people year round, which of course increases in the winter a little bit due to ski season. You can visit the Burrow Street Bakery, Big Daddy's Diner, Cloudcroft Brewing Company, and the Noisy Water Winery. Now, surrounding the White Sands National Park is the White Sands Missile Range. Their missile testing is what causes the road to the park to be closed for short periods occasionally. If you go on base, you can visit the Missile Museum. It's free and has a self guided tour of dozens of missiles, aircraft, drones, and vehicles. If you've been to any of these places, I would love to hear from you. What were your favorite parts? Send me your pictures. Find me on Instagram at the.great.escape.podcast and send me a message. And don't forget to hit subscribe so that you can follow along and dream big for your journeys on the Great Escape. See you next time, adventurers.